Okay.
All right. Mr. Lewis, good afternoon.
Warren Lewis.
What's your number?
Warren Joseph Lewis.
What's your DAC?
85,527.
All right, Mr. Lewis, you're here this afternoon. You're seeking a commutation of your sentence. You have a guest there with you? Who's the lady sitting by?
I'm Chaplain McGraw. I'm here for moral support.
All right. Well, thank you for being here. We appreciate it, Chaplain McGraw. So, Mr. Lewis, I'm going to read some information, ask you to confirm it, then I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Marabella and he'll start the interview with you. You ready?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
All right, Mr. Lewis, you're seeking a commutation of your sentence. You were sentenced in April 1989 in Lafayette Parish to a life sentence for a second-degree murder conviction. Mr. Lewis, is that information correct?
Correct. It's correct, ma'am.
Sir, answer Mr. Marabella's questions, please.
Good afternoon, Mr. Lewis. How are you, sir?
I'm fine, sir.
Mr. Lewis, how old are you, sir?
85.
Mr. Lewis, I've been waiting to see you all day long. It's rare that I get to talk to somebody older than me. 6 years old, you look a lot younger than I feel, I'll tell you that. How long have you been in prison?
34 years, sir.
Mr. Lewis, I was looking at your record. It appears that maybe you were an angry man. You had a lot of fights and things like that. Tell me what happened back 34 years ago in this incident in this bar. Tell me what happened as best you can remember.
Me and Donald Boudreaux walked in. I was sitting at the bar. Donald Boudreaux walked up, and he just stepped on my feet and told me, say, you need to learn some respect, cause I kind of blowed on the barmaid. And I asked him was that his girlfriend or something? And he did not respond. So I said, must not be. So I said, well, you on my feet, get off of my feet. But I made a verbal remark and he hit me in the mouth.
And then what happened?
We fought. And a knife come up and I used it.
Where'd the knife come from?
I don't know. It's several dudes in there. I believe somebody brought the knife. They said, but the DA said it was mine.
Well, the record seemed to reflect that maybe you had the knife in your hand. You went back and sat at the bar with the bloody knife. You don't remember any of that?
After the fight, I went outside and threw the knife.
Okay, so you threw the knife away afterwards.
Outside, yeah. Out the door, went out the door, sat back at the bar.
So let me ask you this. How long had you been at that bar drinking that day?
Quite some time, sir.
What were you drinking?
Beer and VO.
And how long have you been drinking all your life?
Since I was about 18.
And how often would you drink?
Weekends, practically every weekend.
How often was this a weekend?
It was. One of my nieces just got married. One of my niece's daughter, and I went to the wedding, and the bar wasn't far from there, and I ended up in the bar instead of at the wedding.
Mr. Lewis, in looking at your past record, you've had 29 arrests, 10 DWIs or 10 DWI type arrests. You in 55, you had a fighting, 57 fighting, 60 fighting, 63 battery and kidnapping, 68 attempted murder, 68 attempted escape. 1980, you had a murder that you pled to manslaughter. Tell me about that murder and that manslaughter plea in 1980. What was that about?
The manslaughter?
Yes, sir.
Or the one in Texas?
I I didn't write down exactly where it was, but it was 1980. Did you have more than one manslaughter charge?
Well, they got the manslaughter and the second degree thing, you know.
No, I'm not talking about
But-
why you, so now, I'm talking about back 1980. You had a, hang on just a second. Yes, it was in Texas. In Orange, Texas.
Texas. Yes, sir.
Tell me about that. You pled guilty to manslaughter and you were
Yes, sir.
sentenced to 3 years in DOC in Texas. Tell me
Yes.
what happened. What were the facts? of that?
Well, this dude, he calls himself a pimp. He pulled up at the side of this bar, and he told me and another dude was out there. We worked for a roofing company, Billy Turner Roofing Company. We were drinking the Millers, standing outdoors. He told us we had to go because he had his women. They had to talk, and he wanted some privacy. So I said, well, if you want privacy, go somewhere else because we out here drinking the beer. We're not bothering nobody. So he walked up to me, pulled a gun. I took the gun from him. I snatched it, and he was heavy set. He knocked me down, and he was on top of me. And I took the gun from him and shot him with it. And he took back from me, tried to put it in my face, and I snatched it again and shot him again. And I ended up shooting him 3 times before he quit.
Mr. Lewis, I see a pattern. Alcohol, violence. You've done that all your life. Can we agree on that?
Well, that's about right, sir. I had zero understanding when I drank, and I think if I'd have stayed out there, I'd probably be dead today on account of that.
Okay. Well, let's talk a little bit about your drinking. Can we agree that you're an alcoholic?
I would say I was, not no more, because 34 years I never had a drink.
I hear you, and that's a good thing. But what if you get out? Where are you gonna be living at?
If I get out, I'm gonna go out there and try to help my daughters. I got 3 daughters, and
Where?
2 in Lafayette.
Okay, so you hope to go back to Louisiana, Lafayette?
Yeah, I would, cause that's where my daughter's at, and my oldest daughter, she just overcome cancer, and she lived by herself. Her husband died, and I would like to help her as best as I can.
Mr. Lewis, let me stop you for a second. I lived in Lafayette for a long time. Went to school in Lafayette for a long time, and I've never been into a restaurant that didn't have whiskey and beer and everything else. How you gonna be able to stay away from that stuff?
Just place and the love of God changed me. I ain't the same fella no more.
I believe that, but I don't see very many programs that you've taken that deal with substance abuse. What sort of programs that have you taken that are gonna help you stay sober when you get out? I believe you haven't had a drink since you've been in prison. I believe all of that. But my fear is, and I know, once an alcoholic, always an alcoholic. If you get out, go back to drinking, you're gonna find yourself potentially in the same pattern you had before. Your history, as we just talked, has to do with drinking and doing crazy things. What is your plan to make sure you don't do that? And don't tell me, well, I've been sober for 35 years, I'm just not going to do it. Do you have a plan?
Yes, sir. I have a plan to help my daughters. I got one that's just overcome cancer.
I hear that, but that is a plan to help your daughters. How are you going to help you to stay sober and not drink again?
I just done made up my mind. I done had enough of that type of life I've lived before.
Have you ever gone to an AA meeting?
AA meetings,
Yeah.
no, but I've went 100 hours. And I've been gone to anger management, and I probably put in for substance abuse, but I ain't never had it yet. They put me on backlog.
You think you'd like to have some substance abuse before you get out to make sure you'll be able to stay clean and sober?
Well, if they gonna give it to me, yes, I take it. I need it. I feel I need it.
Okay, I appreciate your honesty. I agree with that. Well, let's talk a little bit about your anger. How are you gonna be able to control your anger? I
I've been taking-
realize that some
I've
of the
been-
anger had to do with alcohol, but
I've
you've
been
got,
looking- I've been-
you've got a lot of different things in your background.
If I ain't drinking, I'm pretty good at controlling my anger.
Well, we both realize that drinking is a real issue and a real problem.
But I've been going to anger management. I done took 5 classes.
Okay, so tell me how you deal with, let's say you're out somewhere with your daughter and you go to a restaurant, not drinking, somebody comes in and they step on your foot. What are you gonna do? How you gonna handle that? Or they bump you, or they knock you down, or they're drunk and they come up and they push you. How you gonna handle that?
I'm gonna show respect, sir, and I'm gonna think about the changes I had to go through to over here and all that, and what I've done learned. And I've been going. I went to church and prayed to God and all that there. And I figured that I made a great change in my life, serving God.
Now, which daughter are you going, have you and your daughter talked about where you're gonna live if you get out?
My oldest daughter, the one that's got just overcome cancer, she
Uh-huh.
got a home of her own. She's a 3-bedroom home. Yeah, she's the one I'm gonna live with if I get out.
Tell me a little bit about your health. How are you health-wise? You take any kind of medication?
Oh yeah, I take 11 of one kind and 5 another.
Okay. What specifically? Do you know what ailments do you have? Your blood pressure okay?
High blood, and I'm a diabetic.
Okay. And what do you do for your diabetes? Do you take medication for it?
I got, yes, sir. That's what these let's see, 11 and 5 is what, like 17.
Do you take insulin for your diabetes? or
16,
you
16
take
type of
pills?
medication. Says 16 type of medication.
Gordon, what can you tell us about Mr. Lewis?
Mr. Lewis is currently a Camp FR trustee, camp. He is a Class A trustee, according to his record. He has been since 2003. Medically, he's got a past medical history of coronary artery disease. He does have stents in the past, congestive heart failure, hypertension, diabetes, congestive pulmonary disease, pulmonary hypertension. So he does take a multitude of medications. He does have some underlying health issues. As far as his residence agreement in his packet, what I'm seeing right here is a Ramona Lewis with an address in Lafayette, but there's no signature, no date. I don't know what communication they've had with Ms. Lewis on this. And as we're looking at it, like you said, from a standpoint of his programming, and he is currently enrolled in anger management, but substance abuse would probably benefit him.
Thank you, Warden. That's all the questions.
All right, Mr. Lewis, I don't see any other questions. Is there anything you'd like to say to the board before we vote?
All I say is I appreciate y'all giving me a chance to come before you all and try to ask for pardon. And if y'all do, I'm gonna do everything within my power to abide by y'all rules.
All right, sir, thank you. I think we are prepared to vote. Mr. Mirabella?
Mr. Lewis, I enjoyed talking with you. You're in pretty good shape for 85 years old. I have to say at 76, 85 ain't old anymore to me. So, you've got a few medical issues. I am frankly concerned about drinking.
Yes, sir, I
Certainly
understand
don't
that.
Go back to drinking.
Now, those are,
Let me talk, Mr. Lewis. I know you're you're nervous. You wanna find out what's going on, and we're gonna find out in just a minute. But I'm concerned about you going back to drink, even though you hadn't had a drink in a long time. I'm hoping that whatever decision happens today, we can get you a little bit of treatment so you can get into some substance abuse programs, so you can get some tools. You can learn about AA, know about AA, because you need to go to AA meetings for the rest of your life. You're going to be living in a community. Lafayette is a wonderful community. I love it. They have parties, they have festivals every other weekend. So if you're able to ambulate and get around, you're going to find yourself around alcohol. And you're going to need some strong tools to be able to stay away from it. So you've done well. You're low risk. You've been honest with me today. My vote today would be to recommend to the governor that he commute your sentence to 75 years with parole eligibility. I think you still have to do a little more time, and I'm hoping that maybe, Warden, you can help him get into some sort of a substance abuse program. If that's the vote of everyone, that will give him some tools to make sure he stays sober when he gets out. So good luck to you, Lewis. I hope you get out soon. I hope you get to see your daughters, and I hope you never get in any trouble. Good luck.
thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Freeman?
I concur with Mr. Arabella.
All right, Mrs. Jackson?
The same, this was, I voted to grant recommendation to commute to 75 years.
Mr. Roche?
Mr. Lewis, my vote is the same, for the same reason. Good luck.
Thank you, sir.
So you've received 4 votes to recommend your sentence be commuted to 75 years. I concur with my colleagues, so we'll make that recommendation, sir, on your behalf to the government. Good luck to you.
Thank you, ma'am.
You understand what we just did? Gordon Fowler, explain it to you.
So they're gonna send a recommendation up to the governor. We'll talk about it here in a minute, and we'll work on getting him into the programming as well as try to get the parole project on board with this.
All right.
Great. Thank you, Warden.
We appreciate it. That concludes our business. So we will adjourn. It's 4:48 PM. Thanks for accommodating us today.
Amen.
Okay, so we'll review the court information. It's man, the story is it just like kept going. It's like we're here for one specific case, and then we start learning about the whole situation with the PIMP and how he walks up. It's like unbelievable. He pulls the weapon on him. He ends up taking it and killing him and getting just 3 years for that because I guess they just considered it self-defense. You might even argue why he got any time for it. And 29 arrests, 10 DUIs. Plus, he had killed someone before, and then he killed someone again. I mean, this guy was nothing but trouble. And I think it just comes down to how old you are that they'll just let him out, because I wouldn't call it a good interview. I mean, he was being somewhat honest, but to say that he didn't have a drinking problem is just not believable to me. But it's funny. It's funny at this age they even want to get him into programs. But yeah, what's going to end up happening is that the governor still has to sign off on it, and that can take a year. It can take. Sometimes it doesn't happen. Sometimes the governor can go through his full term. Another governor replaces him, and he's still not pardoned. So it's definitely not a walk in the park. And then after this pardon, we'll have another parole hearing once it's granted, if it's granted. So, and they're going to try to get him into the programs in the interim. Let's go look over the court doc for some more additional information. So, well, that's not going to help. Here we go. I'll zoom in a little bit. So the reason why we have it is that it's an appeal. And when they appeal, we get this information. So on June 18, 1988, the defendant, Warren Joseph Lewis, was involved in a fight at Rosie's Bar in Lafayette, Louisiana, which resulted in the stabbing death of Donald. Gosh, I don't know how to say this name. I'm just going to call him Donald. According to Noel Batiste, the junior manager at Rosie's Bar, the defendant arrived at the bar between 3:30 and 4 o'clock that afternoon. Remember, he said it was after the wedding. I don't know. It could have been an early wedding, I guess. Also working at Rosie's that day was Miss Sable Julivet, the bartender. Mr. Batiste was the only person in the bar who knew the defendant and had seen him before. James Sylvester is a regular patron at Rosie's Bar and has been ever since the establishment was opened. Mr. Sylvester testified that he arrived at the bar between 7:30 p.m. and 8 p.m. on the date in question. Okay, so that means that he would have been there already drinking for quite some time and after the wedding. So yeah, he was plastered. He testified that the defendant was already there when he arrived and that the two spoke briefly while seated at the bar. The victim, Donald, came into the bar and asked Mr. Sylvester how he was doing. Mr. Donald ordered half a pint of whiskey. How much is half a pint? Sounds like a lot when it's whiskey, from the bartender, and had paid for it when Mr. Sylvester, who was seated nearby, heard the defendant say to Mr. Donald, "You stepped on my foot." So this is the defendant who told Donald, "You stepped on my foot." Donald replied, "If I stepped on your foot, I'm sorry." The defendant then said, "I should cut you." The victim, Donald, replied, "If you want to cut me, go ahead." Mr. Sylvester testified that he also heard Donald say that he didn't want any trouble. At that point, the defendant pulled a knife with a large blade from his right pocket. Donald again said that he didn't want no trouble and attempted to leave the bar. Mr. Sylvester testified that the defendant blocked the door to defend Donald from leaving and then began stabbing him repeatedly. The two men fell to the floor and began rolling. Donald managed to get up and leave the bar but fell down outside. It was established at trial that Donald was stabbed 12 times and died due to excessive bleeding when the knife severed the femoral artery in his thigh. That is so sick. You gotta think about that. Here's a man who walked into a bar to get a drink, and he ends up dying. And it wasn't even like he did something stupid, like provoked him or got into a fight, and he bought a drink at the bar, stepped on his foot maybe by mistake, obviously, and said, "I don't want to fight," and tried to leave. That's scary stuff. Then they have the different witnesses, what they saw. He did. He threw the knife out the bar, but then he sat back down, I'm assuming he continued to drink till the police came. Mr. Petit said that the defendant had been drinking but was not so drunk that he didn't know where he was. He also testified that while waiting for police, the ambulance to arrive, he saw the defendant go to the door of the bar and throw the knife outside under the neon sign. You know, that's real smart. I'll just throw it there and no one will find it. What? Oh, God. On July 14, 1908, the defendant Warren Joseph Lewis was charged by grand jury. At the trial, defendant's attorney advanced the theories of self-defense and intoxication. 12-person jury found him guilty. He was given life without the benefit of parole. It's like his rap sheet is so bad. It's not often you get to kill 2 people in your life, 2 separate occasions, and think about it, have a chance of getting to go free. But we have seen a bunch of hearings where this actually is the case. But the 29 arrests and 10 DUIs. Wow. Tell me, what do you think? Do you think he's just simply old enough? The victims are there, you know, there's no one left. So is he a danger to society? I think that the board touched on how he still could be. He still looks like he's in physical tip-top shape. And you tell me, does someone have a right to be free after spending that much time locked up? Or if there's a chance, no matter how small, that he gets behind the wheel, he might, even if he just gets behind the wheel of a car, that's another scary part. I mean, you tell me. You tell me. If I was a board member, I'd be scared. I'd be scared because of the history of drinking. There's something. A lot of times the board gets like they go down that whole like, well, you need more programs. You need to be and you're like, come on, it's been 30 years. He had a few drinks, and what are you saying that he needs to go to DUI? And I look at this as a little bit different. I look at this as actually a bit different. A lot of the cases that they're talking to the inmate, you don't really get the idea that they necessarily had a drinking problem or a drug problem. This is different. This man clearly had a major drinking problem with 10 DUI arrests. Clearly, his crime was in a bar. And he didn't admit to having a drinking problem. He said that he drank on the weekends. So, it is a little scary to think that the first thing he might do when he gets out is go to a bar. And if he gets behind the wheel and he kills someone, even if it's not like, with a knife, but if he just gets behind the wheel, the blood is on your hands, parole board. So this one scares me more than others. He's a young 85 years old. He can go another 25 years behind the wheel, So, okay, love to hear your thoughts. And with that, I'll let you go.